I have several reasons for my opposition to this motion, but I'll first report what the recommendation is. And it's with respect to the approximately 20 employees who are out-of-scope employees of the City of Moose Jaw. And tradition in Moose Jaw is that those out-of-scope employees receive the same increase, cost of living increase that's negotiated with our largest union, CUPE. And there was an increase this year. This motion calls for an additional increase to out-of-scope personnel. All employees but one are to receive an 11.1% increase in salary, and the other employees to receive a 27% increase in the maximum salary level. First of all, it's identified that the cost of this is $185,000 a year. To fund this would require a 1.23% property tax increase. A further problem is that these increases are to start in 7 days. I point out this 1.23% increase to fund this, in addition to the 0.53% increase to fund the fire agreement, puts us at 1.76% before we have the inflationary costs of a budget, which are usually 3-4%. So right away we're behind the 8 ball, looking at a large tax increase, and the number one commitment we've made is to increase out-of-scope salaries. And I think that's very dangerous because it's referred to as this has been a job evaluation. CUPE, our largest union, had for many years a job evaluation request. The Council of Moose Jaw indicated as a management position in negotiations that if CUPE were to wish to have the job evaluation implemented, the costs of that must come out of the costs involved in the negotiation. I think it's a very perilous position and indicative of poor leadership if we are less than a year later, or approximately a year later, to say to them, don't do what we do what we say. I am sure our largest union will be watching and saying, well, how come we had to have that taken out of our salary increases if we wanted it, but out of scope do not? The city manager indicated that there might be some consequences in our next round of negotiations with this, and his comment was, we'll deal with that when we get to it. That does not inspire a lot of confidence in me. I know how we will deal with it when we get to it. It will cost a lot of money. The report that we received tried to make the argument that this is a recruitment and retention issue. I do not believe the report justifies that position. It referred to 2 positions currently vacant that we might have difficulties in recruiting. I do not believe the premise that we have to have these salary increases so that we're now more competitive when recruiting from smaller centers, given that most of our senior out-of-scope personnel did not come from smaller centers. I don't buy that argument. Last year, CUPE came forward, or our personnel department indicated, we're having trouble filling a mechanics position. Our salary for mechanics is not competitive in the marketplace. There was an agreement struck between CUPE and the city to increase the salary of the mechanics position. We did not increase the position of the front-end loader because we increased the mechanics position. We did not increase the salary of a lifeguard. We did not increase the salary of the street sweeper operator. But this report says we might have difficulty with 2 positions, so that all of the positions must get a raise. I do not support that argument. I think it is faulty. And I guess of even more concern to me, when I had the opportunity this week to go through this report in more depth, there were several calculations contained in here to buttress the argument that our out-of-scope position salaries had to increase across the board. And I found 8 errors in mathematical calculation in this report. I do not believe the premises about recruitment and retention are supported by the evidence that's contained in this document. I can't support the motion, particularly when I have a report that is replete with mathematical calculation errors. And for that reason, I'm going to move that this report be referred back to the administration for verification of calculations and more detailed information as to employee turnover at the out-of-scope level.
Thank you. Motion to refer. Need a seconder. I see no seconder. Motion is lost for want of seconder. Further discussion. Councillor Sagal-Hendry.
I would like to say that I'm voting in favor of this motion. I feel that our administration has had its duties and workload increased greatly. I know that that's true, and it seems true to me anyways. And the reason that we look at a comparison when we're doing this is because those comparisons are close. We are not going to be able to keep our employees. We won't be able to find somebody to clean the streets, let alone be able to pay them more, if we don't take a look at what we're doing with our employees. When I was down in Minot, they said the same thing. I just saw a report about I read a report about restaurants and the workers that they can't find to do their work.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to support the motion as well. Many of the same reasons that have been raised by Councillor Sagal-Hendry and others in the course of the committee discussions. It's very difficult to recruit for positions. The fact that we only have 2 open at present, in my opinion, is just the tip of the iceberg.
And say that we have positions that can't be filled, and I do not believe that is the case. I would be interested in hearing what positions we have that can't be filled. I know in the out-of-scope personnel, we have an assistant engineer who has resigned from the position. I think he still might be employed with us. Is he finished now?
He has 3 weeks before he's finally gone.
So if that's one of the positions that we can't fill yet, we haven't got it quite vacant yet. And I believe the other position, we were indicated last week that interviews are ongoing for that position. So I don't believe an analysis of the data supports the claims that have been made that we have this widespread problem with employee turnover at the out-of-scope level. I took the time today to pencil in names beside all these out-of-scope positions. As I indicated, most of them have risen up from the ranks of the city of Moose Jaw. They weren't recruited from elsewhere, and most of them are long-term employees of the city of Moose Jaw. I believe that commercial tax collections in this city are declining. You've seen the census numbers for our population. That somehow this city's #1 priority should be to increase the costs of the out-of-scope personnel, which will have a ripple effect with every other union, particularly our largest union, who says, you just did for them what you told you wouldn't do for us. Mention was made to comparables. Well, we have comparables provided to us, and I would suggest if you look closely at these, they do not justify the claim that the city of Moose Jaw is way behind everybody else. As a matter of fact, we're in between Regina and the smaller cities in most situations, and in some cases we pay more. I do not think an objective analysis of the data supports the contention that the city of Moose Jaw has a really big problem with employee retention at the out-of-scope level.
Mr. Chair, I know that people are probably sick and tired of listening to this debate. You know as well as I do, I think, that at present we're trying to recruit a police chief. My understanding is we have vacancies in the police department right now. So it's not, as you suggest, simply a couple of positions. It's endemic, and it's going to get worse if we don't do something about it now. The miscalculations that you made reference to, I would hope that you at least had the courtesy to notify the city administration of those in advance rather than simply dumping them on them this evening so that they would have an opportunity to actually investigate them and give you a thorough reply.
I'm not going to be a member of council who votes to increase expenditures by $185,000 on a report that is full of mathematical errors. And with respect to the vacancies in the police department, I bumped into a former student the other day. She's applying for the position. I'm sure there are applications for the position. What we are talking about here are the out-of-scope positions at City Hall, where I do not believe a historical analysis will show that we have a large turnover.
Taking back the gavel on the proposition that the City of Moose Jaw adopt the out-of-scope salary schedule attached to the report dated September 14, 2007 from the City Manager regarding out-of-scope recruitment and retention, that the new schedule be implemented effective October 1, 2007. All those in favor of that motion? I have Councillor Looning, hold them up please, Councillor Findlay, Councillor Chow, Mayor McBain, Councillor Schwinghammer, and Councillor Sagal-Hendry. Those opposed, I have Councillor Swanson. That motion is adopted.